What's up, and welcome to another episode of the Scott and Ian Show on the SBL Podcast. Today, oops, he did it again. He bought another bass. He played with your heart, and he bought another bass. Is he going to keep this bass? We don't know. Do we even know do you know what bass I'm talking about right now? No, you don't, but you're going to in the episode. Will we ever cure the gear acquisition syndrome? I don't know, but it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun to see it in somebody else. So Scott got a new bass. Check it out. See what it is. Also, we talk about what would it take to make an incredible, inexpensive instrument. Scott and I play a bunch of bougie basses, but we're thinking more and more about what would it take to make the ultimate cheap bass. And cheap there, being inexpensive is really what we mean, right? But it's too long for a title, right? Also, do big headstocks change the tone? We talk about that a little bit too. Have you ever wondered that? Does the headstock have a huge impact on the sound? Some people think it does. We're going to tell you what we think. Tell you that. Hey, what's going on at SBL? Today, Monday the 20th, we've got Jonathan Marin doing Space and Time. If you don't know Jonathan, he's incredible. He's one of my favorites. He's one of Scott's favorites. Check him out. Absolutely. I need to check out that session too. Then next week, Monday the 27th of November, Ariane Kapp is in the mentor seat talking about the E-scale, E-scalate? Your scales game. I don't even know what that is. I think I'm saying it correctly. Escalate. Your scales game. Now I'm curious. I need to check that out. But if you don't know Ari, she's incredible. So check her out. She does a bunch of theory and groove studies that help make sense of these complicated things, especially for beginners to intermediate players. But of course, if you're advanced, you can check it out as well. It'll always give you new perspective. I love going back to very basic beginner material because I always find that there's a gap somewhere that I have totally missed. So even if you think, I know how to play all the major scales and how to do all that, still, there might be something in there for you. Also, you guys, it's the last week to enroll in the Fretboard Accelerator. The cart closes on Friday, the 24th of November. If you want to check it out, scottsfretboardcourse.com. Again, that's scottsfretboardcourse.com. Let's get into this episode. Can I show the good people though this instrument that came in the mail that you posted to me, but that I'm going to bring over, or are we no dice on that one?
No dice, dude. Let's get it out. Whip it out. I was going to say something outrageous there.
Dude, do you know that stupid song? I can't even remember what it is, but it goes, "When in doubt, I whip it out. Got me a rock and roll band. It's a free for all." Do you know that's a stupid song? Oh my God. Well, whenever someone says whip it out, which is such a ridiculous thing, I think of that stupid song and it's just in my head forever and it will never, I feel like it's like Ted Nugent or something. When in doubt, I whip it out. Got me a rock and roll band. It's a free for all. It's called free for all.
Just so you know, when somebody says whip it out to me, or when I hear whip it out, I do not think of that song. I think of something else.
Dude, I think of that song and something else because I think that's what that guy was talking about in that song. God, I wish we had someone to look that up.
I'm on it, dude. Let me just look. I used to be, for better or worse, whip it out. When you put it in this Google, whip it out. Is it Ted Nugent?
No, it's called Free for All. Is the name of the song. It's not called Whip It Out.
When in doubt, whip it out, Ted Nugent. It is
dude.
Free for All, yeah.
Oh,
Ted
Nugent, the Nuge, man.
I used to have this Ted Nugent, I was going to say DVD, but it wasn't the Ted Nugent DVD. It was a Ted Nugent VHS. And dude, he was freaking awesome. Now, obviously, old Nuge, he's very politically, what's the word?
He's very politically outspoken on the right.
He's got a point to make, yeah. And
he's an intense gun guy. He's also gun guy.
But I love his vibe though as well. I mean, this guy on stage, he was top off. He had leather pants on And he had a raccoon tail, dude. He had a raccoon's tail fastened to his ass. And I was and when I was a kid, I was like, well, I have to say, I didn't ever think that I'd have a tattoo's tail, on my ass. But I did think he was freaking awesome live. What an awesome player. He was awesome live. Yeah, he's a beast.
He's a beast. So I'm about to whip out the new bass. How about that?
Whip it out.
Check this out. You guys, if you're not watching the pod, we would encourage you to do so that you can see this. Now, Scott, I don't know how your connection is, but for me, it's crystal clear, and I'm seeing this bass in all of its glory. This is an Alinto 5-string jazz bass. Also, guys, my voice today,
I think it's sexy.
You like it?
I'm just trying to control myself, mate, because you sound so sexy.
It goes down into the basement, man. I get real close to that mic, and it's real low. Probably hit a low C or something down there.
That is insane.
That's insane. When I'm not feeling great, man, the voice goes into the basement. That's for sure. Check this bass out, you guys. Alinto 5-string jazz. I mean, we've got that cool Alinto.
Look at the fat headstock on that.
Yeah, I know. It's a really cool headstock.
This is like
one of the boutique. Yeah. Same. This is a boutique headstock that I think looks great. This is, I would say, maybe Fiesta Red, and it's nitro. They spray nitro there, and look at the beautiful. Look, I'm going to flip it, and look at this beautiful neck. Is this like a roasted flamed maple neck? I believe it is.
Roasted flamed maple neck. It's got this beautiful kind of sort of like velouty type thing. It's not a veloute. Crazy. It's like a paint thing on the back of the headstock, which is beautiful. It travels slightly down the neck. It's got the old school lollipop tuners as well, which I really like. Big fat headstock. This was an absolute just. What's it called when you just purchase something off the,
impulse?
It was an impulse purchase. Therapy. Absolutely. I was just like, oh. And the funny thing is that somebody bought, so I saw it for sale on Reverb because, hey, I spend, a few minutes a day on Reverb. So I was on Reverb and we were checking out, me and myself were checking out Alintos and stuff like that, and other basses, and that came up for sale. It was a new bass, and I was like, holy shit, that was killer. And then somebody, and like always, I'm backing and forth in online, and generally I'll go through this all the time with basses. I'll look at them for several weeks, and then they'll disappear, and then I'm like, oh, didn't buy that bass, Yes. And I had that experience with this bass. So I was like, oh, I didn't buy that bass. It's sold. And then 3 days later, it popped up back for sale. Whoever bought it decided it wasn't for them and put it back up for sale. And I was like, so they hadn't played it. So it was essentially new. Right. And I was like, oh shit, I'm just going to get it. And I just thought, worst case scenario, because I get a little, nervy when buying online without trying a bass. I've done it a bunch of times, but I always get a bit nervy with it. The reason why I felt, I guess, more comfortable with this one is I've got an Alinto bass. I've got an Alinto P bass, which is absolutely fantastic. And I know Mitch and the guys and Eric at Alinto, and so I feel comfortable with it. So I thought, shit, I'm just going to get it anyway. So I bought it off that guy, and then obviously had it sent to you, and you're going to bring it over with you.
I'm going to bring it over.
Yeah, in a few weeks when you come over to do a bunch of recording over here. So, I'm really pumped about it. I was definitely looking for a 5-string jazz for a bunch of different reasons, whether it's because obviously I'm like, whether it's a keeper or not, we'll wait and see. But I'm really excited about it because I do really love the Alinto P bass that I've got. I just I don't know, I've gone through the, obviously we released the album now, and I was saying to you earlier, I was watching back on videos, and I think that in hindsight, full circle, I was like watching back video, and I guess for transparency for everybody, I just haven't listened to them tunes for 2 months, more maybe. So I kind of forgot about that myself. I forgot what I sounded like in a weird, I know it sounds bizarre to say that, but I kind of
needed a break.
Yeah, we recorded I prepared, we recorded the album, we mixed the album. Like that was it just freaking went on for weeks. And after all of that, I was like, I'm out. Can't listen to any of this stuff anymore. And honestly, I've just been like listening to old school funk and old school R&B and stuff for the last 2 months. Just to sort of like cleanse myself from that just deep dive into sort of like fusion craziness.
Right.
And I was like, but going through the album release, I was like, oh, actually, I sound okay. I sound pretty good on this stuff. I was actually kind of shocked.
You do sound good, man. It sounds great.
Yeah.
Your playing is great and the bass is great. And I'm not just saying that because I like you. It's ferocious. The sound and the playing is ferocious on that record.
Yeah, dude, I was really happy I was more happy than I thought I was.
Yeah.
I was more happy than I thought I was. I went back and I was like, oh, actually, bass sounds great. I think the playing sounds great. And I think that, I'm like super stoked with it. So and that's just happened over the last few weeks. So I don't know. It was interesting. Like it was almost watching myself as an audience member rather than, because I did the thing. I created the album, or we created the album, Simon and myself and the guys. And then I had this huge break from it of a couple of months. When I listened to the album, I could listen to it really like an audience member, and I could listen to myself. I wasn't listening to myself play bass. It was almost like listening to somebody else play bass.
Yes.
So when you have that. When you hear somebody great play and you're like, oh man, I wish I could have a bit of that in my vibe, oh, I love their sound. How do I do that? I had those emotions about myself. I was like, oh, that actually sounds great. And so I was like really stoked. And then it kind of put me in a little bit of a weird space. I was like, what does this mean? What does it mean? Do I just lean into doing more of me? And obviously I think that there is a strong case to do that. So all that to say, it'll be interesting to get on that instrument that you're holding, that because my F bass BN5, I know where I'm at with the F bass, and that is the F bass BN5 is actually really modeled on a Fender, right? On a jazz bass.
Right.
That's what it is. It is like, it's got 2 single coils in the jazz bass position. It's a 5-string, but in terms of body shape and stuff like that, neck, kind of different. So it'll be interesting to see if I can do on that instrument that you're holding what I could do on the BN5. So yeah.
You're just going to have to see. It's a really thin front to back profile, but a very wide neck, which I think feels great. I mean, I don't know any Scott Divine licks. I need to get some Scott Divine licks under my fingers. I mean, maybe. What do you play?
Something like that. Sounds great.
Yeah,
that bass sounds great. Yeah.
Right. Or if you don't play it hard, right? Here's a neck pickup. But if you snap it, it's cool, right? Bridge pickup. Right?
Yeah.
It's cool. And then, of course, it has a B string. Holy crap. So it's so fun to play like a jazz bass with a B. Crazy.
I'm super excited about it. I'm really excited about I'll be interested to feel what the neck is front to back. What's it like compared with your lull? Because you've got a lull 5, right?
Oh, what? Yeah, I wonder. I think it's actually fairly similar. This actually might be a touch thinner, the Alinto front to back, than the lull.
Got it.
You know me, man. I like that chunky neck.
You like a chunky neck, don't you? Yeah.
If you ever play my Voron Saku, you're going to be like, what? It's so chunky.
Is it like a 50s P, but early 50s P bass kind of thing?
Yeah, it's like a big ass ham sandwich. You're like, what? Yeah. But I like that. But this is, I think you'll really like this. It's very slender, front to back. So yeah, dude.
That's what kind of drew me to it as well. In the ad, it said a slim C-shaped neck, and I was like, okay.
That's absolutely right. I think that's absolutely right. I also like, it has this sort of big knot in the fingerboard right here.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it?
Which I think is so cool. Is this a rosewood board?
Yeah. I think it's Indonesian.
It's lovely. It's a huge slab, a piece of rosewood too. It's really cool. I also like how they
Alinto
round off the
generally do.
corners.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it? Like Alinto
Yes.
generally do fat fingerboards, like really, really fat. So for any kind of jazz bass nerds or Fender nerds out there, you'll know that the fingerboard thickness was a thing on Fenders. So Alinto go with a fat fingerboard, quite thick, whereas more traditionalists like Jimmy Capolo over at Oliva Capolo, they do very thin fingerboards. And on some of the fingerboards, on some of the Fenders, it was like a veneer almost, wasn't it?
Yes.
Like it was like almost like a veneer.
A tiny bit of rosewood, right?
Yeah.
They call that round lamb now. You know, I feel like they tried to get away from using the word veneer. You know?
Sounded a bit cheaper.
Yeah. So they call that round lamb. But yeah, that's just a little tiny strip of wood. But I mean, whatever. Then you've got maple underneath. It just depends on, I've played slab boards that I really like. I've played round lamb veneer boards that I really like. It doesn't matter that much to me, but there's something about slab. That word, right? And it was more expensive to produce, right? In the early 60s. And that's why Fender then later went to round lamb or veneer boards because it was just less. Maple was cheaper than rosewood.
Yeah, so predominantly the whole finger, but the whole neck is just maple, isn't it? With this little overlay of rosewood rather than a big slab board. Yeah,
Dude,
interesting.
I am just hearing myself talk right now, and I sound ridiculous. I sound like the guy in the Crash Test Dummies. Remember that band? Once there was this kid who got into
just so you know, he wasn't that low. He wasn't that. Yeah.
Like I can't even sing that high right now.
You need to take it up an octave. But like talking about basses, man, like I've just been nerding out so hard on them recently. I've been talking to somebody. I haven't really talked to you about it or any of the team about it. So it'll be fun just to sort of like dig in, just nerd out on basses for a while here. And we are going to be talking about strings as well. We're going to be talking about strings. So if you're dialing in for strings, we've got you. But I've been talking to Andy. Basically, Andy Baxter and I have been talking about basically like SBL and Andy joining forces. So Andy Baxter, if you guys don't know, basically runs like the most exclusive vintage bass store in Europe for sure. And we were having a pizza the other day, and I just questioned. I was like, could we build the most exclusive bass store in the world? Like, is that like a real, not just vintage instruments, but something like truly special? I think he's special. I think that like he's not only special because of his knowledge of instruments, like he's probably, one of the most knowledgeable people that I know when it comes to basses. And his speciality is definitely vintage basses, but also his attention to detail is maniacal. It really is. It's crazy. Like, and I really wish that other bass stores really took on board what he's doing and thought about, like, when you go and check out his basses, he's got the width of the neck at the first fret. He's got that listed down. He's got the width of the neck at the 12th fret. He's got every little detail and every bass that comes in the store. He spends freaking hours really spending like time and energy on not only setting them up as well as they can play, which I think is vastly underperformed by a lot of bass stores out there. But
Absolutely
he really spends a lot of time putting energy into getting these basses to play as well as they can do, but then also making sure that he's giving the customers looking at the basses like all of the real fine details that they need to make. And you can read the product listing, and just by reading the product listing that he puts on his site, you're like, oh, this guy is a freaking maniacal nerd when it comes to basses.
Yes.
And anyway, so I was talking to Andy and I was like, yeah, so there is an ongoing conversation, just so you know, Ian, that of like, I wonder if we could create like the greatest ever bass store in the world.
Oh my
the greatest. God. Yeah. Something like outlandish, outrageous.
I think you could. And I think it would be incredible. And I think for everybody listening too, don't worry. I will also try to make sure to have some input in that store and to get the best budget conscious selections as well. Here's something that I think, Scott, right? So we've got pretty bougie bass tastes, right? I mean, I'm holding up this Alinto. I have this bass with Mike Lull, the IMA4, and they're expensive. And sometimes people are like, oh man, how do we, like, I can't afford that. People can't pay $4, $5, $6, $7, $8, $9, $10,000 for a bass, right? Yeah. Or above. Yeah. So I think it's going to be, if we build the best bass store with Andy and SBL, I think it's also going to be on us to procure the best budget instruments as well. Like budget instruments that you and I could actually really get behind. And I don't know what that is yet, but I am really interested to figure that out. That's really important to me. I want to figure out.
For me, for me, when you say that, the first place I go, well, I'm not sure about what price range you're talking about, so maybe we should define that as well. But where my mind goes is like basically hot rodding basses. Like, does it exist? Is there a budget bass out there that freaking grabs me by the heart and makes me want to freaking grabs me by the balls, by the testes, Ian?
Yeah.
Is there?
Right by
and
the
if
testes.
There isn't, right by the balls. Just crushes my testes. Anyway.
It doesn't let go.
I know, just sort of like grapples them. Anyhow, and I don't think there is actually. So I wonder if there's like an opportunity to hot rod budget basses. Like, what would you do if somebody came to you and they were like, "Hey, here's this."
Yes.
Here's a $300 bass.
Right.
And you've got, here's a $300 bass, and you can spend, let's say, $300 on it. You've got a $300 bass, you can spend $300 on it. I know what you're gonna do. You're gonna change the machine heads. You're gonna change the pickups probably. You probably put some bougie pots on there. I mean, like some really nice. Right. Yeah, strings. Really nice. Controls, really nice strings on it. Yeah. Give it a freaking awesome setup. Like that's probably what it is. Maybe if I had a pick guard on it, pull the pick guard off, put it some sort of like one of them sort of like cool like vintage pick guards on it. Like
right.
Like it could be fun to think about.
That's a cool idea. Yeah, that's a cool idea of like how to take something that's existing and make it
special.
Yeah, make it special. That's cool. I like that. And see, you're thinking in a really, really low price point. I was even thinking around 1,000 or 1,500. I was kind of in the zone of thinking about something under 2, but that might still be too damn bougie, right? Like, is there something that we can do for 5?
I'm just writing it down as an ultimate. Like. It'd have to be. I think it'd have to be under 1,000. I think it'd have to be under 1,000.
I agree.
If anybody's freaking out there, by the way, and like you are crazy, $1,000 is a lot of money. Like obviously, it is a lot of money. It's just that for you, just so you know, like some like really top machine heads probably going to cost you like $120. Would you say $120?
Exactly. You're already.
Yeah. So just so everybody knows how the money adds up. Pickups. 200, 250, like just parts. You can see how it would add up. But I'll tell you what though, man, it would be a fun project to try and find what is the base, and and then what can you do to them to make them like badass and not only badass but sort of like unique and special.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be really fun. Because like a few of my friends, like me and Sharon have talked about this recently, a few of my friends did that to Squires. They got Squire bass, or that's actually guitars. They got Squire guitars. They pulled the machine heads off. They pulled all the pickups out, pulled all the wiring out, and they just replaced it all. And they're incredible. Now they're incredible instruments, but it says Squire on the headstock. So yeah.
Yeah. The S word instead of the F word.
Yeah, man, we could do some cool. Could do some cool stuff, but I'm really excited about it because I kind of think that it should exist. I think it should exist. I think that Dave that started out. Well, he started Reverb, but if people didn't know, the guy that started Reverb also was the guy that bought Chicago Music Exchange when it was no. You know, you look at Chicago Music Exchange now, and it wasn't anything like that years ago. It really wasn't. Dave actually turned it into that with all of these sort of like you walk in now, there's these glass cases. It's like it's the cross section of bass and art or guitar and art for those guys, right? They've got these 59 Les Paul sunbursts and you know what I mean, like the whole thing. So yeah. It would be really fun to figure out what that looks like for bass. And I think that, like, I don't see anybody doing it that really sort of like captivates me and makes me excited to, like, when I see inside Chicago Music Exchange, I get excited. I'm like, and that's mostly guitars. And I think what they did as well, which was really cool, is that they had great artists come to the showroom and do live performances and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, that's cool. You know, is there an opportunity to do that as well, where we have artists coming in and doing workshops and bunch of cool stuff. Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing. It's a really exciting time, you know? It's an exciting time to be a bass player, you guys.
Oh, it is.
It's very cool.
Dude, tell us about the IMA4. Talk about basses. Tell us about the IMA4 because I'll give them the backstory, then you can fill us in.
Okay.
So a few months ago, or maybe more than a few months ago, like maybe a year ago, Spencer Lull, who runs Lull Basses, who is Mike Lull's son, and Mike Lull passed away maybe like 2 or 3 years ago now. So Spencer runs Lull, and him and Ian are friends, and they got to thinking, and they were like, hey, let's create something called the IMA4, Ian Martin Anderson 4. It's not a signature bass, or that's what Ian tells me anyway, but it's a signature bass without a signature on the headstock. Anyway, so moving on. And they did a really limited run of these a few months back, and you did 3 instruments, didn't they? Like sold out like crazy, like within seconds. And you've just done another limited run. And we were on a call, and just so everybody knows, there were cool colours. Like you did more colours than like this time. There was like this fire mist one, the copper one, and like all of this stuff, right? It looked great. And they're kind of like a mix between, like they've got like really nice like metallic colours. But when I look at the bass, to simplify it, you know, because there's lots of really geeky stuff about it. But if I had to sort of like do an elevator pitch for it, I would be like, okay, it's like a Thunderbird that had a baby with a jazz bass. You know, it's that kind of thing. Jazz bass body, thunder bass pickups. There's some other cool stuff on there as well, and you've got like a reverse cool headstock. That's the kind of like the landscape of it, just in case anybody doesn't know and they haven't seen them. Anyway, so you did another limited run, but you had more pieces available this time round. And Ian and I were on a call. If you're on YouTube, Ian's holding up his beautiful one right now in front of the camera. Go subscribe to the SBL podcast channel on YouTube. If you want to show us some love. And
yes, please.
And we were on a call when the basses went up for sale. So we were like all super excited about it. Oh, it was me, Sharon, you, Lydia was on the call. And we were like, oh, how are they going to sell? Like, how many is going to sell? Oh, like all of these questions. And they sold there was a tech snafu because a bunch of people were trying to buy the same bass, but if that hadn't happened, like so many people were trying to buy the same bass that the system got kind of jammed up. But check it out, they sold all of the basses under 3 minutes. That is incredible.
It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. And you just never know, right? Like, first of all, you never know if the thing that you help make or help design is going to resonate with people, but this one really has. Like, as Scott said, it looks sort of like a marriage between a Jazz and a Thunderbird. It has reverse engineered essentially from a 64 Thunderbird pickups in it, roughly in jazz bass spacing. It has a really cool custom wiring harness, 1 meg pots, and then a custom capacitor. The passive, it's totally passive, but that was a big and linear taper pots too, instead of audio, which is different. So it blends a little differently. Like, Scott, with the jazz bass, when you turn a knob, snap, it might as well just be a switch.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
These are more like blendable, which is cool. Hipshot B, best Fender bridge that isn't Fender. I love this bridge. It's like the best upgraded simple Fender bridge, I think. Slab, ebony, and then the neck too. This is something I haven't talked about a lot. The neck is really a combo of Jazz P and T-Bird. It's T-Bird radius, or it's like a more flat radius, like a Thunderbird. It's slightly wider than a Jazz at the nut, so it's 1.55. And jazz basses are 1.5, so just slightly wider, so in between a Jazz and a P. And then the thickness is more like, I don't know if you'd like the thickness, Scott. I love it. The thickness is 0.084 or something.
Has it got some beef
so it's
to
a little bit chunkier. Yeah, which I love. I love just like gripping it. I'm like, yep, it feels really good to me. It also has what we call dad font lumen lay on the side, like big side dots that glow.
It's cool, dude.
Which is so cool. And then a giant reversed headstock. Yep. Maple, graphite, reinforced maple. And then also the other thing is a super light, like sourced swamp ash body that's solid. It's not chambered. And the whole instrument, like as big and meaty and amazing as it is, comes in at like under 8.5 pounds. And some of them even went under 8 pounds, which is crazy. They're expensive, but they're worth every freaking penny, man. They're amazing. I think so. I've been playing it a lot. I've been touring it. Whenever I pick up like a 4-string long scale bass, I'm reaching for this one. So I was floored. We did Fire Mist Lavender. That's what this is. And we did Fire Mist Amber, which is sort of like that coppery gold color Scott mentioned. We did also Fire Mist Charcoal, which is like a greened out charcoal frost. And then there was an Easter egg one too. We call it Blue Sky. No, we call it Big Sky Blue. It was blue and it had white racing stripes, but the back was natural. And dude, that one was more expensive and it sold first.
You were worried about that one, weren't you? You were like, I'm not sure it's going to sell. I was like, yes, it's going to sell. That was the first one.
I was like, dang, man, that one's expensive, but it was one of one. And there were multiples of all the other colors. And so, hey, if you bought one out there, thank you.
Yeah, man. Like, shout out to everybody that's bought one.
Thank you so much. And let me know if you have one and you managed to get one, post something with it. Tag me, and I'd love to see it. I'd love to see what you do. But sorry, Scott, you were saying.
I did want to ask you about the headstock because,
sure.
Yeah, because you went for something bigger, didn't you? Now, I'm not sure whether you or the people listening, I think that you'll have heard of this, but the more mass on a headstock, there's a few luthiers that buy into the ideology that actually it helps with the tone. So I'll give you a couple of examples of this. So Mike Tobias, he puts weights in the back. If you look at an MTD bass, it's got a veneer on the back of the headstock, and that is because underneath that veneer there is a small weight. Also, if you look at the Alinto Jazz that you were holding before, Ian, that's got a big badass headstock on it. Big headstock. And I saw like Masshino, who was making Alintos up until very recently, and definitely was part in the design of that headstock. He was talking on Instagram about big headstocks and why he thinks that they are why he uses them. If you look at Masino's headstock design, he also makes his own bases, also very big headstock design. And he was saying that his belief is that not only does it make the bass more stable, but it also alters the tone, gives it a better fundamental in terms of the instrument. And then there's somebody else as well that has big headstocks that I'm forgetting. But was that for you? Was it anything to do with that from a tonal perspective? Or was it more to do with an aesthetic perspective?
Dude, I would love to be able to say to you, oh, yes. Oh, and we researched and of course, yes, tonally it was very considered. No, for me, it was purely aesthetic. I love a big headstock. Yeah. I also like this headstock shape when it's this size. I think it's really cool. It feels classic to me, but also like a little bit 80s, 90s, which I really dig. Yeah. And when it's flipped, there's a few things. When it's flipped, first of all, it's a little bit of like a rock and roll middle finger, which, hey man, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. That headstock's flipped over. There's some guys like, I don't know about that headstock flipped over. I'm like, yeah, well, guess what? It's a little bit of a rock and roll middle finger, and I'm a little bit of a rock and roll middle finger. So for me, I really like that. But then the crazy thing is it's also like, think of this, right? When you're playing the bass and you go to tune, I've done this before, but you come up here with a T-Rex arm. Dude, you come up here. Look at that little T-Rex arm tuning the bass way up here. But look at this. When you're doing it down here, check it out. It's just right here. You got it all. You don't even have to change you don't have to go up top to tune. Yeah. You got it right here, like which I think is really interesting.
You get your hands like this and you you do the reach around and then you do the little tickle.
Well, when they're up top, you got to do the reach around with the T-Rex arm. Nobody wants the reach around with the T-Rex arm. I'm sorry. Oh my God. I'm just
trying
sorry.
to get in you every time. Yeah, I just want every time you go to tune your bass that you think about balls. That's all I want. That's my main focus. My main want in this conversation.
Oh,
just
please,
to implant that into your brain.
Exactly. People have asked me about the reverse headstock thing, like if the longer string length to the post for the E string helps. I don't know. I mean, the E string on this bass sounds huge. Like, it's not plugged in right now, but like, the crazy thing is, it certainly doesn't hurt. I can't say like, oh yes, because there's a longer, past the nut, there's a longer reach to the tuning post. That's going to, increase tension and resonance and all. Some people would make that claim. I'm not making that claim, but I am saying it doesn't hurt.
Flip it around. Does the G string feel any different?
I mean, this instrument feels incredibly well balanced. Like it's a really, this bass is like a really lovely instrument. The balance, the way the fingerboard is rolled, the fretwork, the nut, so wherever I play it, I'm like, oh, this bass is like really probably, I don't know, maybe one of, for sure, the most quality instruments I've ever had, just in terms of fit and finish and how it works. But so I don't know, if I had this bass with a headstock that was flipped the other way, would the G string feel different? I'm not sure. It feels really well balanced though. But I wouldn't say oh yeah, the G string, since it's so short to the post, feels like a short scale. It doesn't feel like that. It just feels incredibly well balanced. I just want to be careful not to
alter the tension of the G string at all.
No, because the termination, the scale length termination is from nut to bridge, right? So where the string makes contact with the bridge and the nut, right? That's really sort of where there would be people that say that's where it ends in terms of tension. It's actually the scale length, but it makes a lot of sense to me that the G string is then the shortest to the post, then next the D, then next the A, then next the E. That's how a piano is. So I don't know. Yeah. To me, it sort of feels like it's one of those things that, of course, we're used to the tuners being on the top side. But, did Leo get that right? I don't know. Like if Leo had made that 51 bass and the tuners were on the bottom and that's just what everybody knew, that would be the thing. That would be regular.
Yeah.
That would just be like, oh yeah, yep, that's how a bass is. But he didn't. He made it like a Telecaster, you know, with the tuners on the top. But there's something about this which feels I like that it feels a little bit irreverent, like I said, rock and roll middle finger, but also it's not just aesthetic just for the sake of being different. I think there is, like, if there is some benefit to it, I think it's possible that there is benefit to having the longest post beat E string all the way up to the G. So yeah, man. Yeah. And it looks freaking badass. So
you're like, I don't care though. It looks wicked. I respect that as well. I respect that, man. I think it's great. It's great, dude. Yeah. I'm gonna have to bounce, otherwise the kids are gonna be sat on the pavement waiting for their dad. Maybe I should just do that.
Can't have that.
Just so everybody knows, there's a squirrel sat on a tree outside my house, and he's like eyeing me up. It's like some kind of staring competition. He's like staring right at me. And what makes it weirder is he's got a nut in his mouth. He's got, so you can see all his teeth. He's like, it almost looks like he's growling at me. Oh, anyway, guys, thank you for listening. As always, we appreciate you, and we will see you next time around. Take it easy. See you in a bit. Bye.
Take care, everybody.